I work. Oh, okay. Prior to coming to work at CALS, I worked for nearly 29 years with the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. And one of the coolest projects I got to work on while at AHPP I was working with the Trail of Tears. Let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and get my PowerPoint started and talk about what we did. Let's see here. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, um, the Trail of Tears was the removal of the American Indians from the southeastern United States. There were five tribes primarily involved in the trail. It's usually associated with the Cherokee, but the Chickasaw, the Muskogee Creek, the Choctaw, and the Seminoles were also forced from their ancestral homelands in the southeastern United States to new homelands in the Indian Territory, what is now the state of Oklahoma. So in 1987, Congress created the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail, and the trail, the national trail, was strictly associated with the Cherokee removal, though several of these other removal routes also followed the same routes as did that of the Cherokee. So in Arkansas, there were four major routes that came through, but initially the 1987 legislation only counted two: the northern route, which just came down just up in northwest Arkansas down to what is now Pea Ridge National Military Park, and then those routes distributed on over to the territory. And the other was the water route, which was basically the Mississippi River and then the Arkansas River on into the territory. But the 87 trail did not include the primary overland routes that came through Arkansas. Those were the Bell route, which crossed at Memphis and came across eastern Arkansas and then on into the territory. That was the route that was followed by the Treaty Party. Those are the folks who signed the Treaty of New Echota in Georgia that gave up the Cherokee homeland, and they were under sentence of death for having done that. So they didn't travel with the bulk of the rest of the Cherokee, and in fact, most of the leadership of the Treaty Party were assassinated within several years of coming to this part of the country. The other major overland route was the Benge route, which came across northern Arkansas. And what we set out to do in working with our friends at the National Park Service was to try to identify surviving segments of those 1830 roads. Most of this happened in 1830, 1839, but these roads were built in the 1820s, in part in anticipation of the upcoming Indian removal. So the first major public works efforts in the Arkansas Territory were done to facilitate Indian removal. So there was a plan made for the trail. And one of the things that I did in my previous life was I facilitated it was more of a cat herding operation. We did a national Trail of Tears multiple property listing for the National Register of Historic Places. And this involved, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 9 different states and 6 different tribes or tribal entities, which, somehow with all of that involved, we managed to get it done, and we got a lot of stuff listed on the National Register. So in doing our work here in Arkansas, one of the primary documents we worked with was by a report done by the late Dwayne King, who was really the national expert on Cherokee removal. He was the curator of the National Museum of the American Indian and a number of other things. And he tragically died a few years ago, far too young. But what Dwayne did was he looked at old maps and then looked at modern quad maps, USGS quad maps, and penciled in, what the probable routes that were followed by the Cherokee during their removal. So we used a lot of Dwayne's work in trying to figure out where to go on the ground in Arkansas to find the surviving segments. And it was surprising how much of these remnants of these 1820s roads, 1820s roads survive today, and many of them are follow modern roadbeds, which is pretty cool. So there's the 4 routes in Arkansas. Our first work was done with the Bell route, and the cool thing about the Bell route was we had receipts. The U.S. Army was a bureaucracy, and the officers who accompanied the Bell route got pay vouchers for, if they would stop at a certain place and buy forage or buy food or spend the night. They always had a receipt for it, so we were able to use those receipts to they'd be made out to a certain person. Well, we'd be able to find out where that person lived and go to his property and look and see what there was to find. So one of the things that we found was they had crossed at the Blackfish Ferry. This is in St. Francis County, or it's right on the St. Francis cross county line, I believe. But there was a ferry crossing there where the Bell Party crossed, and we were able to identify that crossing. This is the western side of it. On the eastern side, we found a lot of ceramic sherds and brick sherds from the ferry keeper's house. This was the Strong's Ferry segment. This is approaching the St. Francis River, which is going to be west of that ferry crossing. And this one was kind of cool. I just got an email one day, from a dentist in Florida who said, "Hey, I was on my friend's property and found a part of the Trail of Tears." So he sent us a GPS file showing where it was, and we went there, and sure enough, there was a sizable stretch of 19th century roadbed that survives out there in the middle of the woods in eastern Arkansas. This is a long road. This is the Blackfish Lake to Hill Ferry segment of it's a county road that goes between Blackfish Lake and heading toward that Strong's Ferry. This is a modern dirt road. It's listed on the Arkansas Register of Historic Places. But this was, if you look at it on a map, it's called the Old Military Road, which is a kind of a dead giveaway, but it follows the original route of the Memphis to Little Rock Road, which itself was one of the great, most titanic public work efforts in the history of Arkansas. They had to conquer the vast swamp that stretched from the Mississippi River to the Grand Prairie. Okay, this spot right here. If you don't go to another historic site in Arkansas, go to Village Creek State Park in St. Francis County. This is the Village Creek segment of the Memphis to Little Rock Road. Deeply eroded. There's places that you get down into it, and it's 30 feet deep. It's extremely dramatic. I've taken Cherokee here, and they burst into tears. In fact, in the mid 90s, the Georgia State Archaeological Organization did for their Archaeology Month poster, they did one on the Trail of Tears, and they used a photo of this site in Arkansas, which is pretty cool. But this is again, spectacular site at Village Creek State Park. After you leave Village Creek State Park, modern Highway 306 leads onto the west, and 306 follows the roadbed, or the delineation of that 1820s road on into on close to I believe Colt was the town where it ended. And then at the in the metropolis of Zent in Monroe County, there's a Hennard Cemetery Road that's right off the main highway there, that follows the original roadbed. And then this is the Brownsville segment. Okay, if you're on the north side of Interstate 40 at the Highway 31 exit at Lone Oak, if you go up 31 for a ways, you're going to pass you'll pass the Brownsville Cemetery on the right. The next road that you pass on your right, it's a dirt road. If you turn onto it and go about 50 yards and look north, you're going to see this line of trees in the distance. That line of trees borders a significant stretch of the original roadbed of the Memphis to Little Rock Road. And it's one of those places, if you stand in the middle of that road, you know, if you're not afraid of chiggers and the like, you stand in the middle of that and you really get a feeling of being back there in the day. This is the Bayou 2 Prairie segment. We had to get past a bunch of minnow ponds to get to it, but this is one, most of my work has been in working with the American Civil War in Arkansas. And one day a guy came in, a relic hunter came in and asked me if I'd like to have copies of his relic hunting journals, which of course I said yes, because, you know, this is great archaeological stuff. And I was reading through his notes, and one of them said he found some stuff next to the segment of the old military road. So we got out in the woods, and sure enough, there it was. Okay, now we're getting west of Little Rock, so we've gone from the Memphis to Little Rock Road. Now we're following the Little Rock to Cantonment Gibson Road, which went from Little Rock to Fort Gibson. Now the road beds we've looked at so far, the four of the tribes, the Chickasaw, Muskogee, Choctaw, and Cherokee, all followed those road beds at different times. When we get past Little Rock, most of the Chickasaw kept going this way. The Choctaw, I believe, went down through southwest Arkansas. But this is the only place that this road area here is the only place that any of the Seminole detachments did overland route. They were primarily transported by boat because they were in active combat with the United States Army throughout this period. And the reason they went overland through here is that the Arkansas River was notoriously difficult to travel. You could often get stranded in a steamboat. And so they got stranded and they had to go the rest of the way overland. And the Army officer actually had to borrow money from some of the Seminoles who he was transporting in order to pay for for their transport, because he didn't have authorization. This is at Cadron. If you know Cadron Settlement Park outside of Conway, this is a little road segment that's on the, I guess it'd be the northern end of that property that follows the roadbed. This is the Old Wire Road segment. It's near Blackwell in Conway County, a long stretch of road that follows the original roadbed, and very scenic, as you can see. This is the 4th Street segment. This is in Atkins in Pope County. So if you get off of the highway at Atkins and go over onto 4th Street, you're following the Trail of Tears route through Atkins. The eastern terminus of this street, if you look across that street, there's more roadbed on the other side. You know, it's in the woods, but we just didn't get a chance to explore too much of that. We did get permission to go on one part of it. We climbed a fence and got over there and immediately ran into a bull, which started pawing the ground and snorting, which led us to get back on the other side of the fence and decide to do that another day, which unfortunately we never got around to. This is the Hickeytown Road segment. It comes out of the Piney River or the Piney Creek bottoms at outside of Lamar in Johnson County. It's a nice long segment of road. And now this gets us to where the Bell route started to disperse. We're heading north here from Van Buren. This is the Van Buren to Vineyard Road segment. This is Rodeo Crossing is the name of the modern road. And that was the last of the things that we documented and listed on either the national or Arkansas registers on the Bell route. Then we did the Benge route. And the Benge route, which is this one here that goes through the northern part of the state, the bad thing about the Benge route is there's very, very, very little documentation. Benge, John Benge led this group on his own. He was a Cherokee leader. So there's no receipts. We have some scattered newspaper accounts. We identified a lot of period roadbed, but there was very little that we could actually tie to Benge, which was unfortunate. Though we did, at least identify those 19th century roads. So this is the Black's Ferry Road segment. This is right where they first came into Arkansas, up in northeast Arkansas. This is the Pittman Road segment outside of Pittman's Ferry, and I believe that's in Randolph County. Now this is a gorgeous little section of road that's on the side of a hill at Cotter. At Cotter was the location of Talbert's Ferry, and we have one of the best descriptions of the Benge route from Silas Turnbow, who was he wrote a lot of his experiences. He was a boy working on a ferry boat when the Benge detachment came through, and he talks about some of the Indians just walking across the White River there in the middle of the winter. But there's two parallel stretches that are just wonderfully incised, just some of the prettiest roadbed we came across. This is a county road near Carrollton in Carroll County that follows the historic route, and we have some documentation that puts Benge in Carrollton. And then we have the northern route, and that's that one that just came through out of Missouri to Pea Ridge and then crossed. So at Pea Ridge National Military Park, leading up to Elkhorn Tavern, is a segment of that Springfield to Fayetteville road that was traveled by the northern route. Paralleling Highway 62 near a little burg called Brightwater was this segment, but it has since been destroyed, unfortunately, by the widening of Highway 62. This is one of the finest stretches of the northern route in the country. This is in Cross Hollow, which also has extreme Civil War significance, but it runs for several miles. It's a county road today, and in fact, I know of Cherokee who had their ashes scattered on this road segment because it was part of the Trail of Tears. And here's this was back in the early 2000s. We worked this project from roughly 2000 to 2007. This is sometime in that, but this trail segment at Pea Ridge was reconsecrated by this is Chad Smith, who was then the chief of the Cherokee, and they came through and recognized that segment. We did mark some of the sites along the Trail of Tears when I was in that job. There's several things that I think are still on the river trail at North Little Rock. So we did site-specific ones that the feds paid for, and then we got a grant from the Arkansas Humanities Council to get put up other panels that would kind of give context to the overall Trail of Tears. So that is what we found of surviving remnants of the Trail of Tears in Arkansas. Now I'll briefly talk about how we went, how outside of using Dwayne's maps, we were able to find some of these sites. My friend and former partner Tony Feaster was our GIS guy for the bulk of this work, and I've shamelessly stolen his presentation on how we did that to show you all this. So we worked with historic maps. Here's some maps showing the Little Rock to Cantonment Gibson Road that Tony would scan these into the into his computer and overlay them on the on the maps. We used government land office maps that were the earliest maps of Arkansas, and they a lot of the time would have field notes on the side that would give us clues to what we were looking for. Now, Tony would be better to talk about this, but basically you had to geo-reference the maps because the paper maps don't know where they are on the planet. But by scanning them into the computer and getting reference points to where you could put them, overlay them on a modern USG quad map, you would be able to identify, some of the features that are on this historic government land office map and place them on a modern map, and that would tell us where to go. Not all the maps are as good as others. For instance, this is a great little map of Helena, created during the Civil War. But if you tried to overlay that on a modern map, it would make no sense whatsoever because it didn't have that that scale. So, well, that's more of that. So yeah, here's some other maps that we worked from. Again, here you have very little scale here, but here you've got it more. This is more what it looks like on the ground. So let's see here. Yeah, so we'll look at a few of the things that we did. So here you can see this is that Village Creek segment of the Memphis Little Rock Road that Tony was able to nail from on a GLO from using the historic maps. Here you can see it. We used infrared maps in some cases, and here you can see very clearly this infrared photography looks through the trees to where you can see that roadbed winding its way through through Village Creek. And there's part of that Village Creek route again. Now this was the day after Tony started working on a Monday, and Tuesday he went with us on one of our first Trail of Tears routes. It was Tony Feaster and Holly Hope and I were the primary folks working on this. So we'd heard there was a good route at this place. This is literally the state line. You cross the road here and it's Oklahoma. Over here, though, we had heard there was some road beds. So we got permission, chicken farms all around. We got permission to get on it. And we found this just gorgeously incised road bed that later, several years after this happened, on the Oklahoma side, they listed some road segments that line up perfectly with this. So we're confident that this is part of the Benge route of the Trail of Tears. And there's some more of that. So, Pearl Feaster was hooked. That was his second day on the job. He fell in love with road beds. Now, in some cases, it does not match. Some of the roads we found did not match up correctly. So this is the GLO map of the Memphis Little Rock Road at the crossing of Cadron Creek. We got permission to, and in fact got a guide from a Little Rock doctor to document this road, but when we overlaid it on the map, it did not match up. But we got permission to go back and walked what we found, the other roadbed that we found, and you can see that it matches up perfectly with the historic road, at least it's that far. There's that Atkins 4th Street segment that we talked about, and it matches up close enough for government work, if you will, to the GLO. And there's that Atkins 4th Street stretch today. Now this was one, this was in Menifee. Here you see the military road going through, and Tony had written in some spots where, you know, it could be, we got permission to get in some thick woods there. And in fact, we did find some surviving road bed, and we documented that stretch right there that ran right next to the, up from the railroad tracks. It was, I would guess 100 yards or so. There you can see it. This is, you know, a lot of the times this is what the, you know, 19th century roadbed looks like, you know, but it's, you know, if you know what you're looking for, you know, it's pretty obvious. And sadly, this segment here was destroyed when they widened the right of way for the railroad tracks. So, but at least we have it documented. Here's another great map. This is the Jackson to Fort Smith Road, which led from Jackson, which I believe was in Independence County, and went to Fort Smith. And this road up here is this is the road that the Benge detachment followed. And Tony went in and GPS'd or put in probable places where there could be surviving roadbed, and we went and basically ground truth all of these spots to see if anything survived. And we did find some things. You can see more of Tony's work. Shawnee Village. This is that area around Cotter. I think this up here would be that roadbed that we identified. Hinkle and Sutherland roads. I believe, if I remember right, this was in Independence County, and we did find some roadbeds there. Rosewood Road. These are roads that match the 19th century maps, but because we didn't have the documentation, we couldn't place Benge on them. So I guess that's the long and the short of it. This is what we did. This is what we found, and I would love to answer any questions y'all may have. Stop this share. Okay.
I will start, Mark. This northern part of Arkansas is awfully hilly and mountainous. There had to be a lot of great difficulty for those passing through there.
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, and these are families. You know, they have wagons, and you know, I mean, it's the northern routes, and frankly, that East Arkansas route it must have been living hell to go through those, and depending, there was a lot of loss of life on each of these routes, with all of the different tribes who traveled them. The Choctaw, for instance, they ended up getting bogged down in that East Arkansas swamp, and lost hundreds of people to cholera. You know, there were a number of epidemics that swept through, and you know, if you read the northern route in particular has some diaries from missionaries who traveled with the Indians, and every day or two they talk about burying a child or an old person or whatever, and so the Trail of Tears is scattered with the graves of the Native Americans.
Mark, I have a question. I'm reading the questions that are typed in for you.
Okay.
Jesse Johnson asked, how many miles did they cover in one day?
Oh, I mean, that would depend. You know, and again, probably the best one to follow on that would be the Bell route, because you know, he would document that officer, I believe it was Lieutenant Dees, would document how far they traveled. but it varied fairly widely. I really couldn't characterize any, it depended on the nature of the land they were on any given day.
Deborah Lewis asked, in Northwest Arkansas, I have seen several city streets labeled Trail of Tears. Is this part of the work, your work?
Some of it is. If you've seen the Heritage Trail signs around the state, those that was a doozy of a project right there. Those were almost all done by me and Tony Feaster, working that. We ended up through that program, working with state parks and with the highway department. We marked the Trail of Tears, Civil War routes, the Southwest Trail, a couple other ones I've forgotten. I've forgotten since then, but it is kind of a kick to be driving along and see one of those and say, hey, we did that. So me and Tony got bragging rights on a lot of that stuff.
So Francis Rankin writes, there is at least one marked in Rogers. That shows her statement. And
Yeah.
Are these trails marked so a novice could find segments?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. Really, the Northwest Arkansas, that northern route, is probably the best marked. The Trail of Tears group up there has worked with the National Park Service to get more signs on the ground than anywhere else in the state. So the ones that say original route and things like that, those are National Park Service signs that are placed on those. But I think if there's any of those anywhere other than Northwest Arkansas, I'm not familiar with them.
Doris James writes, I'm interested in the bench route. I noticed that it veers off down to Batesville and then back north to the trail. Was this to acquire supplies?
It was to get supplies and to repair some wagons. So, the ones they needed to get fixed, they sent down to Batesville while everybody else continued on across. And we did find a few possible, probable road stretches as part of that grouping right there.
Sally Sutton asked, or I believe this is a question, is the site marked by Crystal Bridges, one of his sites, one of these sites?
Crystal Bridges was not on either of those routes to the best of my knowledge.
I believe it's just an example. On one of the trails, they actually have Trail of Tears and they have some monuments there, and I think it's an example of the things
Okay.
that were going on. Because I've been there, I know what she's talking about.
Okay.
Linda Smallwood says, you mentioned the Harold's, I'm not pronouncing that right, Henard, that my husband's family, is that segment marked?
It's not marked. It's listed on the National Register, but to the best of my knowledge, it's not marked. I stopped working on this project when we started planning for the Civil War sesquicentennial in 2007, and just never picked it up again. We had a change in administration that wasn't as supportive of a lot of our work during that period. So I never got back onto the Trail of Tears after that. But these segments that are listed, if someone were to want to pursue getting signage, they could contact probably the Arkansas chapter of the Trail of Tears Association would be a good way to start, or get directly with the National Trail System at the National Park Service.
So this question is for me, Charlie Manning. When you first started talking and you mentioned Dwayne, I didn't catch his last name.
Dwayne King.
All right. There was a Dwayne in the Ozark Society that also did a lot of mapping, and I'm a part of that. So I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dwayne was he was a heck of a guy, very, very dry, but I've traveled some interesting road beds with him over the years.
Looking at another one. I live on the old Little Rock Desert Road in the Oak Grove community of Lonoke County. Would this be part of the Trail of Tears?
I don't think so. Yeah, the Memphis to Little Rock Road would probably, let me see, it came up from Monroe County around Duval's Bluff, and it crossed Interstate 40 somewhere past there, then went through Brownsville and on into Jacksonville. Highway 161 in Jacksonville follows the roadbed, in fact. But I think now I'm just trying to remember this, but I think the area you're talking about might have been part of the Butterfield Overland Mill route, but I'm not sure if it was a Trail of Tears. I guess I'd have to see it on a map to be able to make a call.
Well, that's all the questions that have been typed in.
Here's one from Doris. Is that a new one?
Let's see. Yeah, okay, all right. Doris James. There had to have been a route for the Cherokee old settlers. Is the Binge route the same route as the old settlers took?
I could not say. I don't know enough about the how the old settlers came in. I imagine a lot of them probably followed came up the river, but that's before my time, if you will. We didn't study on the old settlers.
Chrissy Smith wrote, on my mother's side, we have Cherokee Indian, and I just lost it.
On my mother's side, we had Cherokee Indian and curious to learn more. Now, well, I can't quite read that. Are they listed on a roll? Are they listed, and how are they listed on a list or a roll?
Okay. Well, the Dawes roll is the gold standard for Cherokee ancestry. I would contact the Cherokee Nation. They have that list of people who were documented as being Cherokee, and they're very helpful in doing that kind of research. The Sequoia Center at UALR might also be a source you could look at.
Judy Jones asked, I missed the first 5 minutes. Where did you say the roadbed was near Duval's Bluff?
Well, I'm recreating this from memory. There really wasn't in that area between Clarendon and Brownsville. It has just been so eaten up by agriculture that that we didn't find any surviving road segments until we got into the Lonoke area. But it would have angled up from Monroe County. I think 31 is a straight up that'll take you right by Craig's Barbecue, but it would have angled to the west from there. But you can't follow the original roadbed because of modern development.
So Deborah Lewis writes, were there records collected by Indians as they moved through Arkansas? Where could I find them? And I think the answer is what you just said.
I'm not sure, but the Sequoia Center at UALR would be the place to check for that. They know everything.
Yeah, and I've been to presentations there at the Sequoia Center, and I've had another question up here also asked, does DAR have more information on these studies? I don't know that they do, but I'm not that familiar with the Indian Committee, but I do know that the Sequoia Center has a vast library and very knowledgeable people there.
Mhm.
I would
In
like
fact,
to,
the Sequoia Center has done a project, which I think they made great progress on. You know, one of the few fortunate things of the pandemic was they had time to do this, but they've done some serious map overlays on in a computer format that follows a number of these removal routes. So that's something worth contacting them about too.
I just wanted to say that the Sequoia Center has a wonderful presence on the internet that they have transcribed a lot of
Mhm.
letters and just everything. You can just go and read for hours. I posted one on ASDAR Facebook, and then I think in my newsletter in February in the state newsletter. But it was a missionary who was writing to his superiors in Missouri, and he was telling them about the hardships. And it was so cold, and I figured they went about 7 miles in that a day, it seemed. But he said that it was so cold, and they had to cross the Mississippi River at that time, and but they would send a party ahead to start a bonfire type situation so that when the rest of the crew got there, that they could warm their hands and so forth. And I also have a friend who is a Cherokee, and she asked me if I'd ever seen the Cherokee Rose. That it's supposedly started from the tears of the Cherokee mothers on the trail. So there's a lot. I would go to the Sequoia for just to read.
Yeah, when I was working on the National Register nominations for these roadbeds, I used a lot of stuff from the Sequoia Center.
Mhm.
Their collection of eyewitness accounts was invaluable.
Mhm. I also recently was looking at the University of Arkansas Press catalog, and they have a book that was published, I think, in 2006. And I ordered one on Amazon, Stone Songs on the Trail of Tears. Are you familiar with that,
Hmm.
Mark? Mhm. It's
Yes,
sort of an
that was
artist.
that was a sculptural project that was done back in the early 2000s. They moved this sculptural installation to different Trail of Tears sites throughout northern Arkansas. It ended up, at least for a time, at the Tyson headquarters in Springdale, but I think that might have ended up at Crystal Bridges. I'm not sure, but yeah, that Stone Songs is a documentation of that art installation project.
It was something like about 20 years ago when the couple of artists had those flags in Central Park in New York City. It was
Hmm.
kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was not intended to be permanent. Any other? Let's see. Did we get Cynthia's question? Can you share, or do you have a website with information or other websites you can recommend with maps? And you've pretty well done that with the Sequoia.
Yeah. Yeah, I would Sequoia would be my first, second, and third stop.
Lisa Whitmer asked which trail would have ended up in the Tahlequah, Oklahoma area. That's where some Cherokee friends of ours live, and survivors of the trail are buried in their family cemetery. Would one or all of the trails have ended up there?
The northern route probably would have ended up in that area, and possibly the Benge route. The Yeah, the trail, the Park Service, their National Historic Trail maps would show a lot of these a lot of these things. Also, the Arkansas chapter of the Trail of Tears Association would probably have some more detailed information about exactly where some of these detachments dispersed when they got into the Indian Territory.
Any other questions? Mark, Chris, I want to thank you for this beautiful presentation and for helping us to see these pictures. And I'm sure they're very emotional. They create emotions for those who actually visit them.
It was nice taking a trip down memory lane. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
what you mean. I have one last thing I'd like to share. I hope that chapters or individuals who are here will consider making contributions to Bacone College Food Pantry in Muskogee, Oklahoma. When you do, be sure to include it on your chapter master report, Regents, next January. The information is on the American Indians Committee page of the May 2021 ASDAR newsletter. I spoke with the person in charge today. There's someone new, and I don't have her name in front of me, but I will put it on I will send out an email to the regents with whom I have been communicating. I asked her if they need a lot of pantry items and toiletries and things for the students at Bacone. But they also list Walmart gift cards. And of course, that would be the easiest thing and less expensive thing if we're mailing something. So I said, well, if we had the choice between a $25 gift card so that you could go purchase some things or giving $5 gift cards to the students, she said right now it would be better to give the $5 Walmart gift cards. And so as soon as we get through here, I'm going to change clothes and head to Walmart and get some 5 gift cards in honor of Mark Christ. And I thought you'd like that, Mark. So if there are no other questions or concerns, I would like to end our program and thank you all for attending, and thank you again, Mark. Bye-bye.